Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Something I continuously mention as being very important to this federal election is the personality differences between Prime Minister Mark Carney and Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. This is obviously an area that Poilievre and the Conservatives have a major advantage over the Liberals. I've said it before, I will say it again. Mark Carney has the personality of a beige painted wall. He gives off no energy. He doesn't make you think he actually cares about the average person. It's really bad. That is why the liberals keep having to talk about Donald Trump. They're having to try and fight the personality battle with Pierre Poilievre through indirect means. Mark Carney's not an interesting person, so they constantly talk about how they're up against Trump. We're taking on Trump, 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 Trump. And I want to bring up something later that demonstrates that liberal voters are actually more motivated by Trump than Canada's actual domestic political and economic situation. It's utterly pathetic. But they almost have to use Trump as a stand-in for Carney in like a reverse kind of a way where they're not marketing in favor of Trump, they're marketing against Trump saying, you know, Carney over here, yeah, he is an absolute dud of a candidate, but he's not Trump, he's anti-Trump. I guess so, in the sense that he is boring and massively incompetent, whereas Trump is energetic and deeply competent, at least when it comes to like domestic political management of the United States. I don't like the tariff thing, but in general, he can get stuff done, whereas Carney has been economic advisor for the last 5 years before becoming prime minister, and he was deeply incompetent. But anyways, before I get into some of the deeper topics I wanted to get into today, I just want to mention to you guys, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, as well as leave a comment. It really helps our videos on the algorithm, and I always like to scroll through a few times to see what people are saying about the topic of the day. But I want to show you the numbers behind Poilievre and Carney's approval ratings. This is the big story of the election. It's the big personality fight that's taking place. Yes, policy matters, but you would be shocked how many voters just vote on the vibes of the leader. Frankly, this is what caused Justin Trudeau to beat Stephen Harper back in 2015. Harper didn't feel like he wanted it. He felt like he was there waiting to get another term, and that was kind of it. And then people were going to obviously shift towards the guy who was energetic, saying stupid things, but at least he said it with some energy. That's how politics work in so many people's minds. That's why O'Toole lost to Trudeau. O'Toole's policy sucked because he kept breaking promises, but so many people voted for Trudeau again because Trudeau has, again, energy, charisma, where Aaron O'Toole always came off like a wet sandwich on stage. But now let's cut to wet sandwich Mr. Mark Carney, who this is a pre-recorded video. I'm going to emphasize, and when I get into the numbers about his approval, you are going to realize why they've slidden so hard.
We're going to build big things in this country, from naval ships to neighborhoods, to the new grids that power them. It'll be a great time for a career in the trades, and we'll help you get started. We'll cover the cost of your training and make it easier to work wherever you want in Canada. You're going to be busy building this country.
It's such a bad ad. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a conservative. Obviously, I'm a conservative. I will be openly partisan. Hey, guys, I've linked in the description below the lawn sign request link. Go get a conservative lawn sign. But that's a bad ad from an objective perspective. He's talking about building big things. And he sounds like he's talking about whether you want chamomile tea or if you want some other form of herbal tea. We have, orange tea. We have lemon. Or you can have some chamomile. He just sounds dead. He's talking about trade jobs. Oh, there's going to be great opportunities for trade jobs. It's like, dude, sound like you're working on a work site, having to project to the back, except he's so dead. He just isn't saying anything. The substance of the ad has already been vaporized from your mind because it was so dull. He didn't give you many specifics. He just says, we're going to build more ships, homes. There's going to be trade jobs, and I'm already putting way too much energy into it to be a Mark Carney, at all. It's terrible. He has the delivery of a doctor coming into your room and saying terminal. It's bad. Now let's move on to another one. This is him at a rally, and him pre-recorded and him at a rally are basically the same thing. You got to give the guy the fact that he's consistent. And he's even talking about something, because he's going to be talking about the US. He's talking about something that should be politically hot-blooded, and he cannot get himself over an emotional 2 out of 10.
The U.S. is harming themselves with these tariffs, okay? It takes some time for that to filter through, just like it took some time for the impacts of Brexit to filter through to the UK economy.
It took some time because he was screwing everything up. Brexit should have been good for the UK, but his monetary policy, putting pressure on the government to pass terrible legislation, is what caused the economy to tumble. So, one, I just had to stop and fact check that. But this is like he's talking about the U.S. Destroying their economy and how we need to protect ourselves. And he sounds again like he's telling you that you've been 1 week late on a book at the library.
But I have seen this movie before. I know exactly what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen to them. The Americans are going to get weaker. We are going to stand by our workers. We are standing by our companies. We are building new trade relationships. We are going to stay strong and get stronger.
Someone even had to start the clapping for everyone else because there is nothing about anything, Mark Carney's delivery that says, oh yeah, applause line. You want to raise your voice a little bit while you're talking about something like this. You want to almost, again, project to the back. You know, we're going to stand strong and we're going to get stronger. He's like, we're strong and we're going to get stronger. It's just bad. Do you want to, let's cut to a good example. Let's cut to Poilievre at a rally, talking off the cuff, obviously not scripted at all. Here is him just pointing to a little girl in the crowd and having an actual human moment that Mr. Carney, like the Terminator, cannot.
You like that? Look at this little girl. Who is this little girl? What's your name? What's your name? Avery. And what brought you here today, Avery?
To help the country.
To help. She's even got a wonderful handshake. I think we have a future prime minister right here in Avery.
This man could be interesting reading the phone book. He is good. He could read the back of a soup label and he could be more compelling than Mark Carney. In fact, you could probably read the back of a soup label and see all the really cheap ingredients that are having to be used because of the high taxes. You could make an entire political speech out of it. But look at the difference there. Now I'm wanting to get into the numbers. So this is day one of Pierre Poilievre. This is the Main Street tracking poll that they do a tracking poll every single day of around like 1,100, 1,300 people. So we have on day one, Poilievre has 28% of people strongly in favor of him, 15% somewhat in favor, and he has 40% strongly unfavorable, and 12% somewhat unfavorable. Really bad number starting out. I believe that's like a -9 or something like that. Super bad. I have someone who's like calculated it elsewhere. I just don't want to do the addition and subtraction here. And then on day 14, so like yesterday, he was at 33% strongly favorable, 15% somewhat favorable, 12% somewhat unfavorable, 34% very unfavorable, which it makes sense because there's NDP and liberal partisans who are always going to say they hate your guts. Same thing happens with Carney. Any conservative is always going to say they're strongly not in favor of him. But let's look at the difference there. So it went from 40% unfavorable, 12% somewhat unfavorable. It's still 12% somewhat unfavorable, but you have it dropped the super unfavorable, very unfavorable, dropped 6%. Now, let's go to day one of Mark Carney. He had 30% day one strongly in favor, 24% somewhat in favor. That is over 50%, 54% approval rating here. And then he only has 28% strongly not in favor of him, 11% somewhat unfavorable. And then there's still 8% undecided. Let's jump to day 14. Now we have 33% up from 28, 33% very unfavorable. We have the somewhat unfavorable is the same, 11%. Very favorable is 32, and somewhat favorable is 19. He used to be his very favorable has moved up a couple points, but the somewhat has dropped back a lot. Now, I want to jump over now to the person who's actually calculated this because the swing is quite dramatic here. It's Shreya Teest on Twitter. You guys should all go give him a follow. He does really good polling analysis. He puts everything into his own model on Poilievre.com. But he says right here, both Poilievre and Carney now have a positive approval rating, +7 for Carney and +2 for Poilievre. Compared to the first day of the campaign, Carney had a +15 and Poilievre had a -9 approval rating. So Carney has gone down 8% with his approval rating, while Poilievre has gone up 11%. That is a massive swing, and it speaks to the idea I have been ballyhooing since this election started off. The Liberals started in a honeymoon period. You swap out Justin Trudeau, who was the bubonic plague for the Liberals, with anybody, and they're going to shoot up in the approval ratings, both national polls as well as the leaders' approval. Same thing happened when Brian Mulroney was swapped out for Kim Campbell. Same thing happened, Joe Biden to Kamala Harris. That even happened between Stephen Dion and Michael Ignatieff, who got absolutely clobbered in 2011 by Stephen Harper. This stuff obviously was not going to last forever. It's a temporary boost because people were artificially giving that second, third look at the Liberals, thinking maybe they've changed, when the entire front bench of the party, the cabinet, the parties, even the rest of the caucus is the same in the Liberal Party. And they're marketing this to us like it's any different. My friend Chase Zaba, he's also somebody who's worth giving a follow to. I'll even link this post in the description below if you guys want to go and give Chase Zaba a follow. He's been putting out some good stats here. Chase Zaba here says, interesting, most polling firms have reported a notable decrease in Liberal support over the last days. Main Street has had the Liberals lose 0.9% over the last day. Liaison has had them lose 2%, and Nanos has had the Liberals lose 2.5%. In fact, in the Nanos poll, who has not been friendly to the Conservatives at all, I believe they still lead the Conservatives by a couple points or so, or it actually might still be like 5 points. But there's been a 4% swing in like the past 3 days in the Nanos poll. And then we go down, Chase notes, meanwhile, Conservatives are up in Main Street by 1 point, Liaison by 1, and Nanos by 1. So if you can combine the Nanos negative and positive for the Conservatives, there has been a 2.6% swing for the Conservatives in this election. Like I've been saying, we are leaving the honeymoon period. We are almost through it. And then we are into a real election. Now, I just want to quickly bring up some other stuff regarding Trump and what issues people care about in this election. This isn't exactly a polling video, but we're analyzing kind of what's the issues of this election. So I want to find this poll. It's actually not a poll. It's basically a word association thing. This is what I find so silly. It's called from Kolsovsky Strategies. They asked Liberal supporters basically what motivates them to vote. And these are the word clouds that motivate Liberals. And you can see Trump is the biggest word here. It's Trump. The words that they say the most are Trump, Canada, Carney, leader. So they're probably, we want leadership against Trump to protect Canada is the most generic way of summing up what Liberals think. Even the economy there. The economy might be only like the 5th biggest word, where if you actually go to the Conservatives, it's liberal. They really don't like the Liberals. But then one of the next biggest things is taxes, and then government, tax, corruption. A lot more of the Conservative voters care about the issues domestically. And I don't even think Trump's even on here. Like the WEF's on here, very small. Notice how Pierre's name is so small. It's just Pierre. Maybe there's a Poilievre here too. And the Carney's name is even small. But Conservatives do not vote simply in opposition of Donald Trump in the United States because it's silly. It's foolish to be making your vote based on who you abstractly think is going to upset the president of the United States that you don't like. That is just foolhardy, and it's usually people who are far too economically, like they're very economically secure people voting this way because they have the money to basically ignore real issues and just vote in this silly way. This is actually one thing that the Conservatives have been doing well. They've been really stripping the bark off of Carney and going after him on like a corruption level, because the idea of Carney was that he is a fresh start for the Liberals. Poilievre here says, Carney hid his company's money in Bermuda to avoid the same taxes Liberals hiked for everyday Canadians. He could have chosen Canada, but instead Carney sheltered his company's money overseas and moved his headquarters out of Canada to Trump's America. He literally moved Brookfield Asset Management from Toronto to New York City. it's absolutely ridiculous that he was able to get away with that and not have people call him out for not being patriotic. Anyways, so that should be it for me today here. I think that we're going to continue seeing this trend go as we move forward, that Poilievre is going to keep moving up in his popularity. Carney is going to keep moving down. I think they're going to be at parity at some point here, and I think the debate is really going to make a difference. The polls are already starting to shift towards the Conservatives. Many of them haven't quite gotten there yet, but even pollsters are saying a lot of these other pollsters are not polling the election right. They are allowing massive response biases to guide what their polls look like. They're not actually making any effort to go and reach out to people who usually don't answer polls, like people who work in trades, farmers, whatnot. The problem with polls is many polls are kind of opt-in. You sign up to be part of the sample. And who signs up to be part of the samples? Public sector workers, downtown office workers, people who have a lot of time on their hands, not guys who are electricians or farmers. Anyways, so that should be it for me today, guys. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and I will be back tomorrow with something new.